A very warm welcome to another episode of Kenya Explained. I am your host, Esther Nyonje. Karibu sana from wherever you're watching me from. I thank you for always tuning in to this conversation. And I say here at Kenya Explained, if we don't talk about it, then who will? And if you do not understand, if we don't talk about it, then how are we going to understand it? Now we are delving into commentating and checking the political pulse of the country and the socio-economic environment of our country. And I'm not alone today. I was to be joined by Mark Bichachi, but he will be joining us on Thursday. And so in studio, I have the amazing guest. His name is David WAFULA. He's a political analyst. Karibu sana.
Thanks for having me.
Karibu sana.
Yes.
And thank you for being patient with us. We've had a few hitches here and there.
Kawaida ya kazi.
Ni kawaida.
Every job has its quirks.
Najua unaelewa, si ndio?
I would know. Yes.
Karibu sana. I really appreciate your time. And straight into it, David.
Yes.
On Friday, it was Friday last week, yes, on 20th of October, we celebrated Mashujaa Day. And that is the day that Kenya celebrates its heroes and heroines, the people who contributed and got us to this place where we are democratically as a country. And now looking at that Mashujaa Day, do you feel at where we are right now, does it commemorate anything to the progress and the steps we've taken from the time since independence until this time as a country?
Yeah, Mashujaa Day is one of those holidays which cannot be left out. I feel like there's a lot as a country we can celebrate. Mm-hmm. Technically, we're supposed to be celebrating our freedoms and whatnot, but President William Ruto has delivered.
He has delivered?
He has delivered. There's a lot that the country can look forward to. You know, one thing I can say, the president launched level 2 and 3 hospitals, which are going to be free.
Well,
in several counties, they've launched this. I'm not too sure about which counties, but he did talk about this. We are yet to see them rolled out. We want to see citizens going there, getting the medication and whatnot. That's something worth celebrating. Again, when you look at that holiday, it was in Kericho, where we were celebrating this. You look at the leadership, the composition that was there. It's always good to see the leaders come together. I saw Atuoli, who was in Azimio. He showed up. You know, that kind of camaraderie is what we want to see on the national front. So these holidays are a great front for us to put and show that we are together. The citizens, you know, the citizens will always mimic what they see with their leaders. Yes.
Yeah, but Atuoli has always been, he spoke the Kenya Kwanza language right from elections, so it's not remarkable to see Atuoli on that stage. And, you know, we had a report of also people dying on that stage. So I'm also worried. We want to host the AFCON in Kenya right now. I'm thinking, do we even have the capacity if people can die in a national holiday in Kericho because of the space?
I think there was a security lapse. The 5 people who died, one of them was an infant, actually. It was very sad. And the reason, turns out, was some police officers launched a tear gas canister into the crowd. I don't know what they were trying to quell, but that was very inappropriate.
Yeah.
So that leads us more into the issue of training. We need our boys to be better trained to deal with the guests. Because, you know, Mashujaa Day celebration, it's Kenyans who show up.
Yeah.
The only guest was the Angolan president who didn't show up. AFCON will be having guests.
Yeah.
People from Zimbabwe, South Africa. We don't want to hear about a stampede. A South African died. Now we have to address the South African ambassador and explain.
Aibu ndogondogo.
Yes, we don't need that. So that's a telltale sign that we need to prepare. We need to tighten our belts.
Yeah, we really need to prepare. It's not going to be a joke.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that. But far from it, you talked about the president hosting the president launching hospitals, and it brings me to my first point of discussion is that the Mashujaa Day celebration was marked by the president assenting the UHC bill into law. And that UHC bill into law is going to take over the NHIF into the social health. It's called SHIF, I think, insurance fund or something, social health, something there. And now, this is an attack to the Kenyan payslip again, because the civil servants have a raise of a cut on their payslip. They're supposed to pay 2.75 to that social health fund. So are leaders not in touch with the reality of Kenyans that just after the finance bill, now we get this again?
Okay, now, the thing about Kenya, the people who are taxable are quite minuscule. Many Kenyans do not have jobs per se. They don't have a pay slip. Mm-hmm. They cannot access the basic things that you and I can access. So it's more of socialism a little bit, whereby the president is taxing the middle class, moving north, to help out the people at the bottom, hence fulfilling what he was calling bottom-up. So bottom-up is going to be a little bit painful because it's your pay slip helping out someone else. It's a bit like what Democrats do in the States. Mm-hmm. You find people are getting food stamps, $300, but they don't go to work. Mm-hmm. So if you're a capitalist, you're going to be against it. You'll say, why am I being billed for someone else's health? Why am I being billed for someone else's housing? But it's a humane thing to do. Put yourself in the seat of the president. What would you do if you're commander-in-chief, Esther?
Well,
would you say to hell with the people who can't pay their Medicare?
The problem is that the taxes are increasing left, right, and center. Just after the finance bill, we have to pay for affordable housing on our pay slips. And the CS Treasury was talking about looking for more ways to increase taxes in Kenya. I mean, it's too much. That's an attack of our on our pay slips. And maybe, I don't know what I will do as president because I didn't ask anyone to vote for me in as president. Yes. But the president was brave enough to make the promises, and he said he's going to lower the cost of living. And the cost of living is not even close to down. It's going higher and higher. And as you increase the taxes and the deductions on the pay slips, the salary is not increasing.
You know, on that point you've mentioned, the cost of living. When we talk about the cost of living, we are suffering from extrinsic factors. And it's actually going to get worse. Let me explain. Russia and the United States, pre the Cold War season, they discuss about the Baltic states. They say, these are the states which are going to be the curtain between the West and the East. So the agreement is that no one is going to tamper with these neutral states. They won't join NATO and they won't join the USSR. What does NATO do? It goes acquiring those states to the point they want to acquire Ukraine. So Russia says, we're not going to allow Ukraine to join NATO because they're going to put nuclear warheads on our border. Mm-hmm. Same thing with the Cuban Missile Crisis. That's what they're trying to avert. So they get into war. I'll get back to Kenya shortly, don't worry. So what happens? Russia invades Ukraine. They end up controlling the Black Sea. What does that do? It blocks the grain from leaving Ukraine and reaching Kenya. We end up having a high cost of unga. That leads to the second sequel. Hamas gets emboldened. They invade Israel. Israel reacts. They go after Gaza. What does the United States do? They move one of their carriers to the Mediterranean Sea. In turn, what does that do? That means flow of ships from the Mediterranean to the Red Sea through the Suez Canal is now under serious they're being monitored a lot. So there's a delay in logistics. Kenya is also suffering from that. This leads us to the third sequel. If Russia invades Ukraine, Israel invades Gaza, what is the third event? China invades Taiwan. How does the United States deal with that? The United States is going to put its navy in the South China Sea to impose an economic sanction because they're both nuclear superpowers. They can't go head to head. That in turn will affect Kenya. My phone here is from China. Your microphone is from China. What happens if we can't access the goods from the South China Sea? So the high cost of living in Kenya, it's extrinsic problems.
Where was this articulation during the campaigns? Because you were here during the campaigns, I was here. And you see, when you talk about the international factors affecting the cost of living, how is an ordinary Kenyan in the village going to understand all that? Yeah, anajua Ruto alisema, nikikanyaga kwa hiyo kiti in 100 days, bei ya unga itakuwa 100 shillings. The president himself also extended his speech to say that the Ukraine Russia war has nothing to do with the oil, with the prices of fuel and the prices of unga in this country and the high cost of living, because he wanted to outsit Uhuru Kenyatta. But now when it comes to his time, they're giving us all these excuses. Now, how is an ordinary Kenyan who is already being taxed, who is paying 40% of taxes on fuel? The prices of fuel is raising every other day, and the CS said that by January, February, it's going to get to 300 shillings. I mean, how do you explain all that to the ordinary Kenyans as the president of the country? It's not your responsibility to explain, but I'm wondering why you are. I want to get an explanation that explain this to an ordinary Kenyan. And when you talk about external factors, Kenya itself, if you say that we are the masses of the OPEC countries, for example, when it comes to the price of fuel,
yes,
we are the masses of the OPEC countries, yes. But when fuel gets to the port of Mombasa, we put all these levies and taxes. We have 2 levies and 7 taxes on fuel alone. To add on, we have increased VAT from 8% to 16%. Tanzania has, I think, 40% of it taxes 40% of each liter of its fuel, but does not have those taxes, those 9 taxes that we have on fuel. So at this point, it can be a government issue that why can't we review those taxes on fuel?
You know why we cannot be compared to Tanzania? The economy is very small. Let's start there. Number 2, our debt is very different. We owe a lot because we do a lot with our economy. When you are sworn in as the commander-in-chief, you inherit a lot from the past regime. You do what you can while you're there. We saw the amount of loans that Uhuru Kenyatta was taking during his time with the handshake brother. You're expecting William Ruto to do miracles, the development, the whatnot, while he's coming in to inherit all this debt. You know, the person living doesn't care. He'll take the loan, do the Mombasa Expressway because he wants something tied to his name historically. You're coming in, you're inheriting all this debt. You either default and go into receivership as a country, or you figure out how to raise the money. So this is, to be honest, we're going through a hard time as a country. There's very little we can do about it except become a production country. We cannot be consumers. When you're a consumer, each and every single time you'll suffer. All right? Let me give you an example. You're Esther Nyonje. You're 4 years old. Okay, not 4, let's say 12. Equity Bank is paying 20% of your fees. Your uncle is paying 30%. Someone else is paying 50%. What happens when your uncle dies? Your academia is curtailed. If the bank goes into receivership, your academia is curtailed. So we need to stop being dependent on external factors, and we need to start producing. Let's start producing the goods locally, and we create more jobs that way. We cannot always look overseas, because then we'll be affected by OPEC, we'll be affected by each and every single war that shows up. Like I told you, the one between China and Taiwan is the next on the horizon. Yes.
All right. So you say we need to, and do you feel we are there? Are we on that path, the production path, where we become a producing a country rather than an importing country?
I can say we were on a very good path with Moses Kuria when he was doing the industrial business parks, whereby, let's say, he gave one example I can refer to. If you have tomatoes, you bring them. In your county, there's an industrial business park. They'll process that into a finished product called tomato sauce. We can brand it with whatever brand you want us to brand it with, and we export that. That is us moving into production. Now, the reason I'm saying we were on a very good path is that Moses Kuria was moved to public service. We are not too sure how the new appointee is going to chaperone the ship. But if she picks the same momentum and speed that Moses Kuria was moving with, the industrial business parks are going to be really revolutionary. Now you just need the produce. You don't need to ship the machine from China. Harvest your tomatoes, bring them. That's tomato sauce. Go get something else, we'll produce it, we'll package it into a finished product ready for export. So that's a good plan. Although as at now we are yet to see it bear the fruits, let's give it some time.
We want to see, because you see, like I told you, where was that articulation during the campaigns? I mean, I feel if you had told Kenyans about if the president had explained to Kenyans about factors, external factors affecting the prices of fuel, the debt obligations the country has, and all those other outside factors that are leading to the high cost of living, then maybe people will have understood him. And as much as, people say that we are hurting now and we are going to get the results later. I don't know. We are yet to see. But even the president himself talks about the NHIF, the social health insurance fund that he has introduced. And he says that this is the best thing to happen in the country, Kenya. Yet, it is Uhuru Kenyatta who carried Kenya during the worst health crisis, during the COVID-19 crisis.
Okay.
He carried the country from that time and until now, and he maneuvered into that situation. And then now we have this social health insurance fund, and we've been having problems with NHIF, lack of accountability, corruption, embezzlement. Do you agree with him when he says this is the best thing that will happen to the health crisis in Kenya?
On that issue of corruption, you're 100% spot on. There's no good idea that goes anywhere with corruption. And that's something that we are facing in Kenya. Front office corruption, every tender corruption, every service corruption. We even saw the president had to streamline all government services into one pay bill number. Mm-hmm. But with universal health care, I think we're on the right path. We're on the right path. Let's be able, just common human decency. If you don't have a job, you have nothing, you have no education, how do you even start life, surely? Esther, you have a degree, you're learned. Mm-hmm. There's several jobs you can do, even outside of what you studied. Mm-hmm. They just see you have the papers, you sound like you know your stuff. Boom, you have a job. Mm-hmm. You're born an orphan, you're living in the street, under a bridge, you get sick, what do? It's just, the president is trying to, equalize the playing field. Every common citizen should have decency. The right to get health care, the right to vote along with all these other rights. And that is why you're seeing most of us are being taxed to facilitate them. Mm-hmm. So the pain, it depends on which side you are. If you go talk to the people, I sent one of my staff to go out and interview people. And they were talking about the housing bill at the time. And people were happy.
People were happy.
I didn't expect that. In the circles I'm in, people are complaining, even within my family. Mm-hmm. I send this guy out, he comes back with the footage. Rais, hii maneno ni mzuri. Why are they saying that? Because they need those houses. If you go to where someone is appreciative, they need the house, they'll tell you, hey man, that's a good idea.
Do they even have the payslips to pay for the affordable housing?
That's what I'm saying. They don't. But we're just trying to facilitate common human decency. Mm-hmm. Everyone has the right to have a roof over their head. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Or do you want us to have the third largest slum in the world for eons?
Well, I think I want us to have a sustainable. Yes, it has to be sustainable, but at this point, I feel we need to numb the pain. Uhuru talks about, Uhuru had the subsidies and the price of fuel was at 98 shillings, 100 shillings. Either way, we're going to pay for these debts. So you come into power and then take away these subsidies and then don't give us a solution, and then we hurt. And then you go for healthcare, we need to pay for this. You go to affordable housing, you need to pay for this. I feel it's too much, and I don't think I'm the only Kenyan who is feeling it. Every Kenyan is feeling it.
Yeah, on the issue of subsidies, I can give you a good example. Say I come home, bread has always been 50 shillings. That's what I give my wife every morning. Suddenly it's 60. And I don't want kelele ya bibi kwa nyumba. So I give her the 50, but I go see the shopkeeper nyuma, I give him 10 bob to subsidize the extra 10. You have a happy wife, right? But she's going to notice that something else is not being delivered. So subsidies was just a way of Uhuru Kenyatta to help Raila get there. Mm-hmm. Notice how after Raila lost and it was apparent, what happened? They froze the program of Unga. That was not a Ruto thing. Mm-hmm. Uhuru Kenyatta removed the subsidy on Unga before Ruto took over. So was he carrying the country then? Or his brother Raila?
Well, yesterday I saw Ndindi Nyoro speaking during a church service, and he was hailing the president. He was talking about the president reducing inflation, taking us out of the debt hole that we were in, stabilizing the economy. He even mentioned that, I think he said that Kenya was among the 29th fastest growing economies in the world. I'm not so sure about those statistics, but that's what he said. So he was really hailing the president. And we have seen this trend by mostly leaders from the Kenya Kwanza side. Is it just sycophancy, or are these people being really honest with themselves? Because, it depends who you're talking to, yes. But looking at what everyone is facing, the president is doing that and that, but we wanted him to turn around the economy and give us a stable environment. But our leaders, especially the ones who are in Kenya Kwanza, do you think they just can't call the king when he's naked? Because I would appreciate if someone said, President, maisha imekuwa ngumu sana. Let us find this and this solution. Let us go to solution B. I know this is what you had planned, but let's put it aside for a while and deal with this for now. Are we facing political sycophancy from our very own leaders who are supposed to protect us?
All right, so the thing about the economy. Say you walk into a company, you're a new CEO. You've been put there by the board. They're expecting you to turn around the revenue. They've been doing lots of losses. The stock market is crashing. They want you to do miracles for them. That's a long-term process. The economy cannot be rescued in 3 months. We had to clear our debts. All right? So you deal with the debt, you deal with the corruption, you start, as you're removing those things from the table, now the economy starts to flourish, slowly but surely. So the president is on the right path. It may not be seen today. I may not even also be sure that what he's doing will yield the results that he promised.
What if they don't?
At least he tried, all right?
At whose expense?
All we want to see is that we are headed in the right direction. It's the same way, so if you sow a seed, you don't know how the harvest is going to be. There's a lot of factors, but you have to do your due diligence. Pardon?
At whose expense? He's trying, are you trying to say that the
I'll
president...
give you an example of the things the president is doing, and no one even talks about. There was massive front office corruption in this country. Any service you're going for, they're charging you 300 when it's a free service. 1,000 here, 2,000 there. You want to convert your title to the new title from the county government, they want 100,000. The president rolled out a singular pay bill number. Do you know eCitizen was doing 1 billion before? In August, they did 4 billion. Can you imagine that? So these are the small things, the small nuances. You get these things correct. The economy is not a one-off thing. It's a juggernaut. It's a complex mixture. So the president is on the right path. Let's give him time. If he fails Kenyans, we'll tell Kenyans he failed.
Okay.
And the right date to punish him will be August 2027. Yes.
That's right. Very true. Now, looking at the national dialogue talks, the recent development is that the Azimio coalition leader Raila Odinga expressed his concerns that if we do not talk about the cost of living, he is not going to sign into that agreement. Is there hope for this National Dialogue Committee?
First of all, the high cost of living is not Raila's problem. You know where the problem is, why they were causing all that commotion?
Yes.
The office of the opposition leader. That's where the real problem is. If you hear about it, you'll think it's just floor space, like where we are. You allocate 20,000 feet floor space, that's the office of the opposition leader. No, there's legal language behind it. I've seen proposals that the office of opposition leader, or rather the opposition leader, will be getting intelligence reports, NIS, like the president, every morning. That's something that Githu Muigai was floating. So that's a contentious issue. Kimani Ichung'wah cannot agree to that. They were also saying that the opposition leader should have an office in parliament, in which case, what's the point of having a minority leader? So those are the nuances they're talking about behind the scene. I even saw another proposal that the opposition leader will be able to address the National Assembly. the same way the president does in the State of the Union, State of the Nation address. So these are the things they are arguing about behind the scenes, and I have credible intel on this. It's not about the high cost of living. Trust me. Yes.
So, you could say it's not about the high cost of living, but at least you can give some credit to the National Dialogue Committee for bringing some stabilization into the country. Because remember where we were at before this team had to sit down and find a formalized process for everything. We were in the streets, burning our country down, yet we want to have a stable economy. So it couldn't work.
Who is we?
Yeah? Us Kenyans.
It was the Azimio faction that was in the street. Everyone else was working.
You see, the bone of contention is that how do you deal with this other person who holds half of the country after an election? And this person, because the margin of the election results was very narrow, okay?
Yes.
Now, this person is holding half of the country who have not come to terms with accepting election results. When you look at Uganda, Rwanda, DRC, they have unstable democracies. Kenya is enjoying a stable democracy. So things like that can put us in that situation. So we cannot overlook it. That's why we maybe need to consider the office of the leader of the opposition. And it's not about Raila Odinga. It's about this other person who got the votes from the other half of the Kenyans. And also remember statements like from the deputy president who talks about the government being a shareholding government. That's our reality. So if he talks about that the country is a shareholding government, that the winners of the elections and the ones who walked through us during the campaigns are the ones who are going to get most of this government, then where is the inclusivity? So it's generally about inclusivity, which is a good idea, don't you think?
Let me tell you, where there is shares, there is honor. You remove the shares, you bring deceit. In any level of life. I'll give you an example. People think shares is just in Kenya. Meg Whitman, the ambassador of America to Kenya. Do you know how she landed that job? She donated $500,000 to Biden's campaign. So she got shares. She bought the shares. Today, David WAFULA maybe is a young guy. He doesn't have anything. My parents hold me up. The few people who support me hold me up. When I get $1 million, they're the first people who get something from the shares. So if you don't follow the mantra of shares, you'll follow the mantra of what? Deceit. You won't give me $1 million today, and my dad and mom will not see something from it first.
In government. And we have a constitution to protect us.
I'm coming to that. I've seen people saying there's a problem between Deputy President and Ruto, that Ruto was reprimanding him about shares. I believe you saw that.
Yes, I did.
The two of them are on the same page, actually. Rigathi is saying that the positions in government are dished out according to shares. President Ruto is talking about development in the nation is going to be doled out, not based on how you voted, but based on you being a Kenyan. Those are two different things. So they're actually in agreement. And it's not even a tribal thing. If you look, we have Eliud Owalo. He's a Luo. CS of Communication. It's just that there are very few Luos who support President Ruto. That is why there are very few of them in government. Had Raila won, Babu Owino was touted to be the CS of Education. You read that list, it will be Ochieng, Ojiambo, Anyango. And I would be okay with it, because those are the people who stood with Baba. Back the winning horse, the horse wins, you share the spoils. But once you get the position, the thing is, render the service without favor. And this is why I say I like Moses Kuria. This guy, when he was CS of Trade, he launched 13 industrial business parks before he was moved to public service. 11 of those, or around 10, were in Azimio strongholds. He did 2 or 3 in Kenya Kwanza areas. So I said, that's commendable. Once you're there, discharge your services to everybody. So shares has to be there. You remove shares, you bring in deceit. I think you'd agree. Yes.
Is that more reason why we should have that office of the leader of opposition?
The leader of opposition, to be honest, it's an office that's been put there to soothe the loser of the election. Because it's always been winner takes all.
It's proving to be a delicate, a sensitive. It's like a situation where I feel it's a situation where you walk on eggshells when it comes to looking at the loser of an election in our system, Kenya.
How so?
Because, like I said, this leader of opposition holds a good fraction of the country. And when you are using if you want to say that I'm using the parts in parliament, in the minority leader as the leader of opposition, the minority leader is a member of parliament in one constituent somewhere.
Yes.
But this leader of opposition garnered votes in the whole of the country. So this person is a lethal weapon, you know?
Of course, the leader of opposition is a lethal weapon. If after losing elections, you go conducting maandamano, people getting killed, businesses being looted, then you become a lethal weapon. Generally, you're supposed to lose an election and still remain a human being. You're not supposed to be a lethal weapon.
That is not our system. You see, like the system in the USA, if you're a Republican and a Democrat, when the Republicans have it, the Republicans times. But you see,
Yes.
That is not our system in Kenya. We are not there yet. We still have the tribal issues. We still have problems with inclusivity. So maybe we should really consider this office of the opposition leader to help us get to that place where we want to get, where there is inclusivity.
Personally, I don't have a problem with the office, but I feel we are rewarding bad behavior. People lose elections and they go doing chaos. You know, you can't accept results. When was the last time we had a presidential candidate losing genuinely and coming out to concede like we see in America? In fact, Trump is the first to break precedent. Hillary Clinton called Trump and conceded, and you say, congratulations, you won the race. In Kenya, no one concedes, and no one will ever concede. We are such a bad country. There are situations which I'll agree, actually, that there was no need to concede. I hold and still believe the 2017 elections were stolen, actually. And I did vote for Raila. But 2022, he did lose. And he should have lost graciously. And he didn't. So the office of opposition leader, we are rewarding bad behavior, and it seems that's the direction we are taking as a country. What can we do to stop it?
All right. And to finish up our conversation today, ladies and gentlemen, keep subscribing to this YouTube channel for more informative conversations like this, and comment on the comment section so that you can see and interact more. And as we're finishing up this conversation, we've seen the president not staying in State House to deliver his mandate, but he's been touring the country with his, I don't know if I should say development or it's just development agenda. His latest trip in the country was at Luo Nyanza, at Raila's stronghold and Raila's area. So are this development agendas really serious, or they are already setting the country in a campaign mode? Because I feel Kenyans are always in a campaign mode. Do we ever get to a place where we close the chapter of elections and then look at it after every 5 years? And I think the president is leading us into that.
You know,
into the opposite of that.
How you behave as president is determined by the kind of leadership you have in the country you come from. If you come from Kenya, there are projects which will always stall if you don't move around. We are having crooks that the president has to micromanage. And I can give you an example. After the 2022 elections, Gladys Wanga declared a 1-week tax holiday in Homa Bay. And I bashed her. I did a video on that. I said, why is she doing a 1-week tax holiday? Everyone else is remitting tax to the national kitty and then remitting to Homa Bay, and you're not giving us anything for a week? Are you money laundering? Are you doing kickbacks to your friends who donated to you? So I bashed her. 2 months ago, I was watching Spice FM. I see Gladys Wanga there. She's talking about they went from 100 million revenue to 700 million. That's good. Hongera. In fact, she's the only politician I owe an apology based on my regular day-to-day analysis. So that 1 week tax holiday was to figure out how are we going to raise better taxes.
That was her methodology.
Her methodology, it worked. 100 to 700. Her neighbor, James Orengo, from Siaya County, the Deputy Governor, William Oduol, goes around the country, NTV, wherever, saying, in Siaya County, they are stealing interest worth 900 million. One governor is tying her boot, raising 700. Another one is stealing 900 million. They've matched them pound for pound, 700 to 700, and they've one-upped them twice. These are reasons why the president has to move around. County governments are the biggest cartel. They're the people, you take 2 steps forward, another one takes you 5 steps backwards. So the president has to move around and check. You know, every county he goes, he says, hii barabara tutanyorosha kutoka hii soko paka ile soko. You see that, right? But if he goes, he knows, nisiporudi hapa, hizi story tunajua. He's been in government. So you have to micromanage these crooks. Yes, that is a problem. Do you see him doing tours all over Nairobi? No. Sakaja is an accountable guy. He does what he needs to do. There's no robbery here and there. They've also fine-streamed Nairobi County. You're no longer paying land rates at City Hall. Mtu anakuitisha kitu kidogo. I've been paying land rates there. When it was manual, unaenda kulipa unaambiwa leta 2,000. Urukishwe line. So you can imagine. That is why you're seeing the president move around. It's not about campaigning. It's just that we are having very dishonest leaders who need to be micromanaged like children. Yes. Ukiacha ujamaa peke yake, nothing will move ever. Yes.
But I remember Kibaki did not move. Kibaki did some things here and there to turn around the economy, deal with corruption.
But look at the constitution he had. Did he have governors? He didn't have. You know, us, we overrepresented. You have so many thieves above you. You have a chief. You have an MCA. You have an MP. In fact, I even forgot you have an area OCS. You have a senator. You have a women rep. These people, some of them, their positions are redundant and they are thieves. A governor who is stealing.
There are avenues of corruption also.
So many avenues of corruption exist today that Kibaki didn't have. So that's the challenge. In fact, if you ask me, we don't need all these positions. We are overrepresented. I would rather we go back to the system whereby an MP doubles up as a minister. Let's reduce the governors from 47, because we've come to discover, like the case of Gladys Wanga and Orengo, one is moving this way, the other one the other way. We reduce those numbers. We go down to 10, so that when we say this is a governor, hata ile uzito unasikia. Right now everybody is a governor. There's 47. How many governors do you know? The governor of Lamu anajulikana na nani? There are so many today. So we need to reduce those numbers. We'll reduce the corruption. County governments is something that it's like the government contracted herpes, if you ask me. It will be there for a while.
There was devolved corruption also.
Yes.
All right. Yes. So the president should move around and look at those loopholes, kabisa.
And consider amending the constitution. We don't need all these counties. I don't agree with it.
All right.
Yes.
Those are the thoughts from David Wafula. He's a political analyst. Thank you so much for coming to the show today.
Thank you for having me.
It was a wonderful conversation, and your comments, your shares, your liking, your subscribing will be much appreciated. Tune in to this channel for more conversations like this, and we are working hard to bring you more of these conversations of this nature. Until next time, thank you and stay safe.